Hey, Katie. Well, you certainly make it sound very peaceful and voluntary, and it definitely makes sense that, when services are rendered, you generally get a bill for those services, and, generally makes sense to pay that. However, I would submit that what you're talking about in the social contract, they're two different things, and the just simply paying for services is not how our society is run. To give you a better idea where I'm coming from, Aaron and I, we bought this house a few months ago, and when we were looking, there are different neighborhoods with different rules. Some had HOAs where you had to pay the HOA fee every month. Some had regulations: can you park a boat in your front yard, etc. And even in the free society that I imagine, of course, there's going to be a whole wide range of social experimentation going on. Different neighborhoods will not allow guns, and that's something you have to agree to as part of the contract when you move to sign to live in a certain neighborhood. So that makes sense to me, but that's private contract and private property. I can take on a renter, but you agree to a certain set of rules. That makes sense, but again, I would submit that that is very different from the supposed social contract, where you have a positive obligation from birth to pay money on threat of death. We started with England, right? They were a colony under England. They're the ones who said do this or go to jail. They set the rules that we had to live by. England was a monarchy, and if you look at monarchies, it's just an evolution of might makes right. The original local chieftain, originally he accumulates power over time. It becomes more centralized, and they do little things to try to give it an air of legitimacy, but we recognize that might makes right is not, has no legitimacy, and monarchies have no legitimacy, zero. So, and this is where we get ideas out of the Declaration of Independence, consent of the governed. There must be some voluntary aspect to it, self-determination, self-ownership. So, when we kicked the Brits out, when some people kicked the Brits out, when England was out of the way, and the original conception of the United States state, the state apparatus, which now dictates that you pay for something or else go in a cage in a basement. And again, what I mean by that, right now, if you don't pay taxes because you don't support the drug war, let's say, you don't want to pay the taxes that go to the drug war, they send you a letter if you ignore that, because, heck, they don't have the right to make me pay for something I find morally objectionable. They send you a second and a third and a fourth. Finally, they say, court date, you must show up. Again, you don't acknowledge it, say that's not right, no, I'm not paying this. Well, then someone shows up with a gun, and if you don't follow him, he will shoot you if you resist. So either for the inception of the American state, either two things happened. Either one, the people who set it up got the approval of every single person within that geographical zone, their approval to be their defense services, their dispute resolution services, from then and their posterity to infinity. Or people showed up on your doorstep and said, hey, I'm not sure if you got the memo, but I'm offering protection services here, and you owe me that protection money. And if you don't pay that protection money, things could go pretty bad for you. We've all seen The Godfather. I think we understand, what that really is. That is thuggery. That is violence, the threat of violence and theft. We also recognize that option one never happened. There's no conceivable way that every single person in that geographical zone said, yes, I agree 100% to everything you're doing. I submit. I obey. That's impossible. So the social contract, it seems like, it's that option too. At some point, someone just said, hey, this is how it runs. You owe me now this new protection money. And if you don't, bad things will happen to you. If the social contract is a valid way to offer services, because there are a lot of services offered, back then, and it was kind of like now, where you want an Apple computer, you go buy one. No one forces you to. But if the social contract is a valid way to offer services such as defense, dispute resolution, the regulation of ovaries, then great. Let's apply that universally, and let's see what we get. Because surely there's nothing special about this particular group of people in history that certain rights only apply to them and no one else. We understand that rights and liberties should be equal to all men and women, all mankind. In philosophy, the best thing to do concerning ethics is to start with nothing, just absolutely nothing. And the first question you ask yourself is consistency preferable to inconsistency? It's important because if consistency is good, then you consistently apply a rule that consistency is good. If inconsistency is preferable, then you have to consistently apply a rule that says inconsistency is better. That's a logical contradiction, and this is how we know that for enforceable ethics, it's something that needs to be universal for all mankind. One group does not get special rights over another. One race doesn't. One geographic zone doesn't. So, if the social contract, which is different than private contract, if the social contract is a valid way to offer services, well, to be consistent, surely you would not object to me or someone else moving into your neighborhood and say, hey, I don't know if you got the memo, but I'm starting this school for my kids, and your kids are welcome to go to it. But regardless of whether they go to it, attend or not, you do have to pay for it. You really do. Or else you are harming the poor, or whatever. All those wonderful ad homs they'll throw at you. And, if you don't pay, I have a basement, it has a cage, I'll put you there, and if you resist, I will shoot you. That's what consistently applying something called a social contract would be like. We've been using Planned Parenthood or birth control in this example, but let's take another one. I find it absolutely disgusting, morally repugnant, that some people are kidnapped and put in cages because they have vegetation in their pocket, which I don't think really does anything except mildly harm the person who takes it. I have no right to tell you what you can do or cannot do with your own body, and I absolutely would not support someone else as a way of making things better for society, going around and throwing these people in jail and destroying their lives. I mean, you gotta sign off on something that says, I committed a felony. Your economic prospects from there on out are shot. So, this isn't, getting a service for no pay. That's not what's being advocated or asked here. What's being asked is, do you support the initiation of force on an otherwise peaceful person because they disagree with you on a preference? And certainly, how to handle drugs and drug addiction is a preference. One other thing I'd mention is, look at the Amish. They don't use the services. It makes sense they shouldn't have to pay for them, right? Shouldn't that be all of our choices? If I move out to Montana, which is the next step, and buy 20 or whatever, however many acres, shouldn't it be my choice to secede and just say, this is my plot, and I won't use your services? I might not even, part of the agreement might be I can't step on United States soil. But if I don't use services, do I still have to pay for them? I mean, that is being forced to have a service at the end of a gun. That's not how everything else works. So, I don't think it's separate. Taxation is not a special, separate thing that makes it okay to do, which is otherwise criminal for you or I. Let me know if that makes sense. And yeah, okay.